各位早晨。
Good morning.
今日嘅記者會係有關財政預算案。
The press briefing is on budget initiatives related to the Commerce and Economic Development Bureau. Present today we have Mr. Edward Diao, Secretary for Commerce and Economic Development, Ms. Vivian Sum, Commissioner for Tourism, Mr. Stephen Phillips, Director General of Investment Promotion, Mr. David Wong, Director of Intellectual Property, and Mr. Brian Low, Director General of Trade and Industry. The Secretary will deliver an opening address. Thank you. Friends from the media and fellow citizens, good morning. In the coming hour, I'd like to focus on budget initiatives related to the overall trade and commerce development of Hong Kong. As we all know, we face an extremely difficult situation. The epidemic has dealt a heavy blow to Hong Kong, not just to our livelihood, but to the economy. In this double war, if we cannot win the war against the epidemic, then our economy will certainly be hurt. If we can put the epidemic under control, then Hong Kong is in an advantageous position. We can then have a rebound. The first slide on the PPT shows you very clear statistics from last year. Even though we were under a very serious epidemic, now for the total volume of trade last year, not only did we not suffer, we actually achieved a record high. And this rebound is not just a technical adjustment. Compared with our peak in 2018, we were still 60% above it, and the year-by-year growth was over 25%. This goes to show that when the epidemic is put under control, then we can leverage our advantages and strengths in trade and find a way out of Hong Kong. And actually, the GDP growth last year was to a large extent led by trade. This is because Hong Kong is at a rather advantageous trading position or economic position. Last year, our GDP growth was 6.4% compared with the global figure of 5.9%. We did very well, and compared with new emerging Asian markets, including the Asian countries, we were doing quite well. And in particular, the mainland achieved 8.1% compared with the US and the Euro region. In fact, the economic performance in Asia was much better last year. This, to a certain extent, reflects that our trading and economic relations have undergone a change in the past decade. Now let's go back to the first slide. 80% of our trading is with the Asia-Pacific region, 70% with RCEP, i.e. The ASEAN countries and the mainland, and Australia and New Zealand. Our largest trading partners, of course, the mainland, accounting for over one half, to be followed by ASEAN countries, and also Taiwan, and then EU and the US. So we should rely on the economic growth in these countries so that we can grasp the opportunities. In the third slide, we can see that Hong Kong is still a very popular trading hub in the international community. It can be shown in our annual survey done last year. The number of mainland and overseas countries in Hong Kong grew last year, though not by a large extent, but then we were able to keep the momentum. And as I said, with more and more countries from the region, including the mainland and Singapore, among the top 5. And then some are worried that because of the epidemic, people are worried that companies may move out and may relocate. In fact, the enterprises inevitably keep adjusting their place of operation. In our liaison with companies through Invest Hong Kong, for instance, enterprises are making adjustments. If they need to operate frequently in the mainland or in the region, of course, they may have to do some redeployment. All in all, we have maintained more or less the same number of mainland and overseas countries in Hong Kong as reflected in the survey. And as the FS mentioned in its budget, in last year as a whole, many enterprises achieved rather considerable business turnover. On the one hand, they were affected by the travel restrictions and the epidemic. So some adjustment or redeployment was done. But last year, profit tax paid by these enterprises achieved a record high. So in midst of the epidemic, enterprises have to make adjustments. So for our strategy, as set out in the budget, we should stand united with concerted efforts. We'll be able to win the war against the epidemic, and then economic activities can resume as soon as possible. So the budget said that we should enhance our resilience, and we should also enrich our industries and diversify so that we can have more solid foundation, and we should strengthen our advantages in trading. So in para 108 to 118, we focused on how we can strengthen Hong Kong's position as an international trading hub, and we can attract foreign investment and make use of the opportunities offered by the country in the 14th five-year plan, and then we can capitalize on the dual circulation of the country and its opening up. There are 5 broad directions. Now, the first is, of course, to assist and support our enterprises. This is the most urgent task. And then for the remaining 4 directions, now in addition to helping our enterprises now, we should in the long and medium term retain our strength so that we will be in a position to rebound as soon as the situation allows. Last week, the LegCo approved the AEF 6.0, amounting to $27 billion to help different sectors and employees. Among the many proposals, the mostly quoted measure is how we, through the SME financing guarantee scheme, help SMEs to tide over the difficult period. And so in the budget, we've not just increased the commitment to $280 billion. We've also relaxed the application time or extend the time for another 6 months. Each enterprise can obtain a maximum loan with the ceiling raised from $6 million to $9 million. And then the total amount of employee wages and rents for 18 months is now raised to that for 27 months, and the maximum repayment period is now extended to 10 years. We do understand the need from enterprises, and after discussing with Hong Kong MA, we are willing to provide this commitment through banks.
I believe that this scheme will be well received by the industries. Besides the scheme to provide liquidity, the government will also roll out a series of measures to reduce the cost of businesses, including reduction of profits tax and rates, as well as government charges, including business registration fees, sewage and water fees, and the rent of government premises. These are all the ways that the government will help tie the businesses over this epidemic. It also includes special support for hard-hit industries like the tourism sector. The government has committed a lot of fundings, as much as $170 billion to support enterprises. These measures will provide direct support for enterprises, and also we hope that there will be a multiplier effect through capital flow, as well as the consumption voucher scheme. We hope that the economy will receive a much-needed boost. And also, we will expand our trade and commerce network. As I mentioned at the beginning, our trade network is very important for our economy. There are two major directions of our country that is very important for our economy. First, the dual circulation of our country. Under the framework of CEPA, we will continue to strive for liberalization measures for our professional services into the mainland market. In the past few years, for the construction industry and the legal professional sector, we have obtained assets for our sectors into the GBA markets. And on a regional and international level, for the 15 economies under the RCEP, they make up for over 70% of our trade. So we have to prepare for our accession to RCEP. Like I have mentioned in numerous platforms, we have entered a key stage. We have expressed our interest for accession to RCEP to member states, and also we have prepared ourselves. Once RCEP begins a discussion on accepting new members, the accession of Hong Kong into RCEP will be expedited. And also we will continue to negotiate and work with trade partners along the Belt and Road initiatives. We have doubled the number of free trade agreements with more economies. We have updated the free trade agreement signed between Hong Kong and Chile and enhanced the FTA. Under the uncertainties in the international trade environment, we hope that we can ensure certainties for businesses by entering into multilateral agreements. Third, helping businesses to expand the market. Under this backdrop, we need to provide support to SMEs. When SMEs wants to enter the mainland market, there are lots of hurdles. For example, market information as well as self-adjustment. We want to help our businesses to fully integrate into the domestic circulation in the mainland. In the previous budget, we have allocated $300 million to the Trade Development Council to establish the Go GBA platform. This year, we will further inject $135 million into the TDC so that they can provide better support for Hong Kong enterprises when entering mainland. This includes training of talents, exploration of markets, as well as utilization of the channels of the TDC in the mainland. Together with the Go GBA platform, we can provide a better help to Hong Kong enterprises in the integration into the domestic circulation. Externally, with enhanced FTAs and investment agreements, we are more confident that we can better make use of our funds, including the Bud Fund. The coverage has been extended from 1 economy to 35 economies with FTAs and IAs with Hong Kong. We have also stepped up support for businesses in terms of export credit insurance. We have recorded a record high volume of external trade of goods. With a trade contract, businesses can receive insurance credit services. The Insurance Credit Bureau has stepped up support for businesses in this regard. And also the trade contracts can be used as a collateral for insurance credit. Fourth, promotion of investment. In the past few years, Hong Kong is still the most attractive place in terms of foreign direct investment. We rank at the 3rd globally. In this regard, Invest Hong Kong will continue to enhance its work in this regard. In the entire civil service establishment, we have recorded zero growth. However, 2 departments under my bureau have received a time-limited or regular increase in resources to hire more manpower, including Invest Hong Kong. The funding received was $90 million. For development in GBA, INT, green finance, climate change, and carbon neutrality, there are a lot of opportunities. And also, we are utilizing our trade network overseas, including Economic and Trade Office, to promote investments. So that's in line with the budget. Another department which received additional funding is the Intellectual Property Department. In 3 years' time, we have allocated $85 million to enhance its approval capacity in terms of original grants patent. We have implemented the OGP system since 3 years ago. That's a high value-added field with high demand. It will help enhance our status as an intellectual property hub. Besides OGP enhancement, we also strive for early implementation of international standards, and also we will strive to amend the copyright ordinance within this year. The bill will be tabled at LegCo this year, and also we will work with departments to enhance our intellectual property services. Lastly, besides financial services, professional services, and so on, the tourism sector is key to our economy. Despite the current plight, we haven't neglected the tourism industry. In the past 6 rounds of the AEF, we have offered more than $3.8 billion for the trade to overcome the hardship. And also, we have drafted a blueprint together with the trade to enhance its capacity. In the budget, we will continue to roll out support for the tourism sector. 1 month ago, we have allocated $300 million to the Green Lifestyle Local Tour Incentive Scheme. And we are aware that to attract more visitors, we have to create a new tourism attractions with rich content, and also we have to pay attention to restoration and maintenance of antiquities. That's why we have a new cultural and heritage sites local tour incentive scheme. It is similar to the Green Lifestyle scheme. However, the focus is on local culture and heritage. This will provide a new focus for the industry. when tourism travel resumes, the sector will be equipped to attract visitors with more attractions. It includes subsidizing training for tourism practitioners, as well as allocating more funding for the tourism board for revival of tourism. As I've said, despite the record low number of inbound visitors, we have to maintain our brand. So when the conditions allow, we can receive visitors to Hong Kong as soon as possible, as well as join the multi-destination tour in GBA.
So these are the four main directions or highlights of the CEDB in the budget, and we have also got the responsible officers present to answer your questions. Now is the Q&A session, and please identify the organization you represent. Yes, over here. Good afternoon. Good morning, Secretary. I'm from Now TV. Now, you mentioned that $160 million to help the tourism industry. How effective would that be? We don't know when the tourism industry can revive. Even when the epidemic has eased, we have to resume cross-boundary and also overseas travel first. You talked about 3 years of training for practitioners. Now, what kind of practitioners you want to train, because many people like individual traveling, they do not join tours at all. And regarding the principal moratorium, some members of the sector have said that yes, loans can help to a certain extent, and they thought that they could wait until the economy recovered. But as the epidemic persists, they are now heavily indebted. What is your response? And on the question of the fight against the pandemic, now you're responsible for the task force for logistics arrangement, and you have taken over some Chinese proprietary medicine. Some in Hong Kong are happy that finally they can have Chinese proportionary medicine to help the pandemic. Some are a bit confused because there is also a question of registration in Hong Kong. You are the main official responsible for receiving the medication from the mainland. What is your comment? Is the government going to accept to receive more Chinese proprietary medicine from the mainland to fight the pandemic? Now, I think I will focus on the budget initiatives first, and if I have time, I will take the remaining questions. Now, for the tourism industry, we understand that our support to the sector is about survival, because without any tourists, how can they survive? In the past 6 rounds of AEF, we gave direct support to travel agents, tour guides, tour escorts, and even coach drivers to give them direct support. Well, 1,700 travel agencies have we have 1,700 travel agencies in Hong Kong, and the number that have wound up is smaller than expected. So we've also employed some of the practitioners to help us in vaccination, because many of them are experts in greeting. So we have reserved $600 million in the AEF, latest round of AEF, to employ more or to provide more time-limited jobs. Our intention is to keep these enterprises afloat so that they can maintain a limited extent of operation. So when we have an economic revival, then they can continue to operate. But we cannot just provide support. So we, in that $3.8 billion of support for the industry, we have got $1.2 billion to help upgrade the sector. Now, when visitors come back, the global environment will be very much different. They may not then come to Hong Kong for shopping. So we expect that when this wave of epidemic has eased, when we can resume international travel, then most of the visitors will come for a business purpose, for business negotiations, for instance. So the first batch of visitors that come back may have very different expectations. And now people more and more place more emphasis on experience, the traveling experience. From surveys from tourism board, we understand that people would like to have a very unique experience in Hong Kong. They want to enjoy our green lifestyle, and Hong Kong is a place where the East meets the West, and that's why we have a unique role to play in the 14th five-year plan of the country. So we have to update and upgrade and redesign our sites, and so do the practitioners. In the recent transformation, many tour guides, for instance, are concerned as to what extra information and things in the itinerary to bring out these characteristics. Among the registered travel agencies, half of them would like to engage in green tourism. The fees are not low, and they have given visitors a very unique experience. And so, in addition to the green lifestyle local tour, we've also got cultural and heritage sites, and we can also include elements of arts in tourism. And that has made Hong Kong a very unique place in the world. And there are major events to be kept. For instance, a Wine and Dine festival. It used to be a renowned event. While we cannot have a major event, can we break it up? Like last year, we have over 100 eateries taking part in the Wine and Dine Festival. We have to keep our reputation as a gourmet paradise. So I think these are good directions for the tourism to upgrade themselves. And I think this is also welcomed by the industry. When we discussed this recently in the LegCo, members have said that how we can help the sector to be prepared for a resumption of normal traveling. And as for the principal moratorium scheme, last year, at the start of the year, when the epidemic was rampant, there were difficulties, and the enterprises had to review their own position to see whether they could ride out the storm. So cash flow was most important. In the second half of last year, we saw a strong rebound in many sectors. While they were not back to the position pre-epidemic, still cash flow was very important. And therefore, among the many budget initiatives, the principal moratorium as well as the SME financing guarantee scheme were most popular among the sector. They would like the scheme to be extended. Now, first of all, the interest rate is very low. It's just prime plus 2.5. I think that is about 2.75% compared to a normal commercial loan. The interest rate is much lower, and then the repayment period is now extended to 10 years. The loan can be used for paying wages and also rent equivalent to 27 months. So we, of course, have to put the epidemic under control before the economy can revive, and such supporting measures are what the industry wants.
財政預算案有關。
Second question, please focus on questions relating to the budget.
South China Morning Post. First, my question is about the tourism investment that about 1.26 billion is put in the budget to help the industry survive. And you've also mentioned that even though tourism numbers are at record lows, we need to maintain the brand. Can you explain exactly what this brand is right now? Because it's really hard for people who are banned from coming into Hong Kong to believe in Hong Kong's brand at the moment. And for this, for the amount allocated in the budget, it's really just to cover the survival of the players that are still existing. So how do you attract people to come into Hong Kong once this pandemic is over, and to keep Hong Kong's relevance despite the past 2 years of being essentially closed off to its main tourists? And my second question is about the difference between MNCs and SMEs. You've also mentioned that there are a lot of MNCs that have grown in the past 2 years, but with the support of the 100% guarantee loans for SMEs, how much more longer can they hold up with this type of loans and processes? And I understand that their operations are affected by social distancing. So aside from this, what other else can the government do to support the SME industry, because it is a big and significant part of the local economy that we are relying on right now?
Yeah, I think I've in fact covered in the first question in Chinese, but I'll take it very briefly. I think in helping the tourism industry, which is hard hit at the moment for quite a bit of time, of course, the first and foremost is to keep them alive. That's why a big chunk of money, amount to no less than $3.8 billion, has been dished out to 1,700 travel agents and also tens of thousands of their staff, including sort of tourist guide and drivers, whatnot. Right? So, but we should do more than that. And in fact, they are more resilient than we have thought. Among all the travel agents, in fact, majority of them have maintained the business registration. That means they are coping, waiting that, well, when the fine day comes back, where tourists can come back, they would have the ability to rebound. That's why the second trend of support, including sort of enhancing Hong Kong's attractiveness as a tourism destination, is so important. Now, this includes the continued effort to highlight attractions, including in the past we have highlighted green sort of characters of Hong Kong being a very green city, and also covering heritage, culture, local design, or local heritage. Now, this will involve injection of money for, say, tourism board to do the general promotion. It also involves money that goes to upgrade practitioner, equipping themselves to be a very good sort of practitioner or tourist guide in attracting tourists. I think Hong Kong remains a very attractive place for tourism. But of course, for the entire world, I think COVID has been putting a major barrier. So we are taking this opportunity of this now period to upgrade the trade as a whole, to maintain Hong Kong's image, and also to equip every frontline practitioner to prepare the coming back of tourists. On the second question, SME, and again, this is also a multi-pronged approach. For SME, for the hard-hit sectors, of course, the anti-epidemic fund have been providing subsidies and relief to various hard-hit sectors. But among all the measures rolled out, we have heard most and also very strong demand for measures that could ease the cash flow of enterprises. And that's why the 100% financing scheme for SME has been so popular. And we have processed over 47,000 applications, among to more than $80 billion dish out. And the current proposal to enhance the scheme by extending the scope, raising the ceiling, and also lengthening the repayment period are measures to allow this measure to help SMEs. But of course, as I mentioned at the outset, without winning the war against COVID, our economy will continue to be hard hit. But figures speak for themselves that, well, like last year, when we're able to contain the virus, actually the economic rebound is pretty strong, and therefore we should seize every opportunity to preserve the vitality of our enterprises so that, well, when we're able to suppress the COVID, then we are able to rebound our economy.
好，下一條問題。
Next question, please. The lady in beige. Good morning. You mentioned our status as an international trade and commerce center. Last year, the number rose by 10%. So where did that come from? I mean the number of enterprises in Hong Kong. What is the source country? Now, because of our zero COVID strategy, many foreign companies are shifting their operations to other places like Singapore. So do you expect the number of foreign enterprises in Hong Kong will drop in this year because it will shake our position as an international trade center? Now, you said we will be able to provide new attractions and experience to visitors after the epidemic. But when will that happen? I will take the question first, and then I will invite Mr. Stephen Phillips to answer your question. Invest Hong Kong is at the front line. They are closely contacting our partners, so he will be able to answer you. Now, the situation is like this. We all want cross-boundary travel to resume. International corporations and individual visitors want to travel. Of course, we have to adhere to our strategy to prevent importation of cases and prevent a local rebound. So we have to attach priority to anti-epidemic work. I'm not going to repeat myself. Now, in preparation for the budgets, we see a clear correlation between good anti-epidemic work and strong rebound of economy. That's what happened in year 2021. Not only did we see a rebound, we also saw record high numbers for some figures. So that's our general strategy. We have to maintain it. So besides helping businesses to stay afloat, we have to help them to update and transform themselves. So in the 5 areas I mentioned, first is direct support. That's very much needed for hard-hit sectors and relieve their cash flow problems. The remaining 4 areas are medium to long-term measures. That's how we can build up our strengths in the long run. That's why many foreign investors and corporations still choosing Hong Kong as the base because they can make money in Hong Kong. Last year, when I talked to our trade partners, so we heard from general chambers that despite the restrictions, they made a record high earning last year. That's why the tax revenue from the sector has even increased last year. So that's the consideration of international corporations. The main consideration is whether they can make money. Of course, they have to make deployment changes. They may have to. So I invite Mr. Stephen Phillips to talk about his experience.
Thank you very much. Firstly, in terms of the survey numbers, where we had this record number in 2021 at 10% from 2017, though the source of that, the top 5 sources, are the mainland, Japan, USA, UK, and Singapore. But I think what's very important to Hong Kong is actually the portfolio of international companies that we have really come from every continent. And what we're seeing is strong interest from across the globe. And in our day-to-day work, I'd really split it into two areas. There's the companies that we're still looking to attract to Hong Kong, and there's existing FDI in Hong Kong, both from the mainland and internationally. The nature of FDI is that it's long-term investment. Companies invest because they see the remarkable potential in Hong Kong and using Hong Kong to serve GBA, the rest of the country, and increasingly the economies of RCEP. So if I look at the new investment side, what we're seeing is really, really strong interest from across the globe. And companies are doing preparatory work to make the investment once the COVID situation improves. Certainly we saw in our Startup Festival and our FinTech Week last year, phenomenal interest from like 100 economies around the world where companies are looking at setting up in Hong Kong. And what we're doing at the moment is helping companies build the business case, do the preparatory work so that they can set up in the future. But even in the COVID environment, we helped more than 300 companies last year, either to set up a new operation in the city or expand an existing operation. So I think some of the information that we all pick up about companies leaving, at the same time, there are still plenty of companies coming in. The picture is a bit more complex, perhaps, for existing investors. The operating environment differs, as Secretary Yao has said, by sector. And some companies are redeploying resources, but on a short-term basis to keep their momentum of their regional business going. But I think the fact remains in the dialogue that I have with big and SME, international and mainland companies in Hong Kong, they continue to see the phenomenal prospects once things rebound. So opportunities in Hong Kong, opportunities in the Greater Bay Area, in the rest of the country, and then this very exciting possibility of RCEP turbocharging the Asian economy. So I think short-term challenges, but companies are still seeing this long-term, very significant potential.
或者我俾多個即係
Perhaps I can show you another aspect. May not be may not show the full picture, but it's quite telling. Now we're preparing for resuming normal cross-boundary travel with the mainland. And some companies who are interested in having quarantine-free arrangement under a normal cross-boundary travel. Now we are doing the preparation work. It was in the end, at the beginning of last year or the end of the year before last, 26,000 odd companies have registered to join this scheme through Invest Hong Kong. And also, according to information from Census and Statistics, we've approached these 9,000 odd companies on the list. Some of them are regional headquarters. Now, if they have the need, we can allow them to register. So far, we have received over 600 overseas companies using Hong Kong as their regional headquarters registered. And there are a few dozen, 40 to 50 companies that are new companies not approached in the past, but when they became aware of the scheme through other chambers of commerce, they came to register. So as soon as we resume normal cross-boundary travel, then many companies are eager to enjoy quarantine-free travel, and companies not contacted in the past, or some of them, were outside original lists. Of course, our local chambers of commerce have been helping us to do registration, and with another 2,000 or so companies interested. So as soon as the epidemic has eased and we resume quarantine-free travel, cross-boundary travel, sentiments will change very quickly, as we all see this as the way out. So back to the same old point, we should fight the epidemic together, and then the economy can rebound. Yes, last two questions.
TMHK. As Hong Kong is opening the border a lot later than other places, how can the $1.2 billion injected to tourism sector ensure we can catch up and compete with other places? Like what sort of image that Hong Kong is maintaining that stands out from other places? And another question is not about the budget, but we hope you can answer later. It's just that how many face masks and also RAT test kits have Hong Kong received so far? And when do you think the procurement would be enough to support the citywide testing exercises? Is it early March or late March? Thanks.
Yeah, for the question, can I ask the Commissioner for Tourism to cover, well, where would this injection money goes and what's the focus? I've in fact sort of covered some of the general direction, but I'll pass to Vivian to talk about this.
Yes, as the Secretary explained earlier, that the 1.26 billion serves two purposes. First is to provide some opportunities for the practitioners to carry out exploratory work, and then to organize local tours of Hong Kong characteristics. So that means in the meantime, while no tourists are coming into Hong Kong, the government has given incentive to them to develop products so that they can try out and make preparation for the time when tourists are coming back to Hong Kong. And as regard the 600 million for the tourism board, again, it serves two purposes. Tourism board in the past year used a lot of its resources to encourage local spending through its staycation programs, free tour programs. They will continue to do that with the extra resources given. At the same time, they have made a lot of preparation to strengthen, to launch promotion once the circumstances permit. And they will do it in a very targeted manner, in a way that when a source market is ready, then they will focus their efforts and resources to do promotion with the target source market. And again, and the last one is on this $20 million for training practitioners. This is very much needed for them to upgrade their skills, as well as to make preparation for their local tour with green element, as well as with culture and heritage. So the $1.2 billion will be used in a very good way to, on the one hand, help practitioners to have working opportunities, at the same time to help them develop new products.
Mm-hmm. Can I quote you two very small examples to illustrate the point that we need to invest for the future. Now, before COVID hits, we have in fact, based on our tourism blueprint, focusing on building Hong Kong's new tourism attraction, using some local, very unique indigenous local experiences. Take, for instance, promotion of Sham Shui Po. It's a very interesting place that you can find nowhere in other sort of neighboring cities. It's part of Hong Kong's sort of history. It's a mix of sort of tenement buildings, outlets of certain product accessories. But it's also a place frequented by a lot of young designers and also increasingly more sort of young artists finding that place as their home or workshop. Now, as a result of that campaign, Sham Shui Po was ranked one of the 3 most fascinating places by one of the international magazines. Now, those are efforts that we can put Hong Kong back to the global tourism map, not just by traditional saying that Hong Kong is a shopping paradise or international city, but something very unique. Now, we didn't stop at that. We have been using, say, some outlying island, Yim Tian Ji, to bring artists to indigenous village, making it a very unique experience. And most recently, you have heard late last year, Tourism Board helped promoting West Kowloon, marrying not just the Western Kowloon Cultural District, M+ or the Palace Museum coming on stream, but also the West Kowloon New Cultural District together with the traditional Yaobade Wangkok, where we find sort of shops, interesting outlet, hotels, and temples. It's a mix of new and old. It's a mix of sort of local and also international culture into one. Now, these would help promote Hong Kong's image. These are very fascinating experiences. Now, the trick is that the best selling point of all these attraction aside is the first-hand experience of locals going to see, visit, and then sort of help spread the message. Because a lot of international travelers will, these days would search on the net, what are the best experience by locals? They want to travel like the locals. So we are in fact building up something. Initially, sort of helping the industry to equip themselves, riding on this, but also sort of helping our Hong Kong people, first of all, they are among the first enjoying this new discovery so that they can build up Hong Kong's image internationally. So when the time comes, these are the very interesting pointers. And definitely, I think that need to be matched up with upgrading of, say, the tourism industry, the frontline petition, as Vivian mentioned, and also the overall promotion that Tourism Board is helping us to do internationally. So I think all this gel together. Let alone, there is also one very important element is, I think when the time comes of traveling being resumed, people would not just come to one city. They might be hopping on a few to sort of lengthen the trip because, well, there will be more restrictions on traveling. So that's multiple destination using Hong Kong as a first landing point together with our neighboring city in the Greater Bay Area would be one very major attraction. So how to gel this together with the tourism development across the boundary is also one area that we have been developing in the last 1 or 2 years in collaboration with our mainland counterparts. I'll reserve the question outside budget later on to see if there are any other questions on
OK，
budget.
好，最後一條問題。
Last question, please. If there are no other questions, then I shall answer the questions from the reporters about the epidemic. Now, in fighting the epidemic, we have received a staunch support from the country under the collaboration steered by the Chief Secretary for Administration. The central government has promised to provide medical supplies to Hong Kong. For the parts of medical supplies which cannot be fulfilled with our own procuring efforts, or if we require a large amount of supplies within a short period of time, we will request for help. So in the past 2 weeks, we have submitted a list of medical supplies, including PPEs like masks you mentioned, and also rapid antigen test kits, which are more in demand by individuals and by our testing operations, and also proprietary Chinese medicine. These are medications used by the Department of Health and the HA in treating patients. So we have compiled a list, and then we will allocate and distribute the supplies to departments. The central government and provincial governments have swiftly delivered a large batch of medical supplies to Hong Kong over the weekend, including proprietary Chinese medicine and RAT. We have immediately deployed these supplies to our daily work, including restriction and testing declaration operations. Sometimes we would supply RAT to residents. RATs are also provided to frontline staff, for example, cleaning workers who may transmit the disease to other people, and also for RCHEs and care homes. We are supplying RATs to the residents and the staff. In terms of proprietary Chinese medicine, the list would be drawn up by the Department of Health and Hospital Authority. The supplies will be used by the Department of Health and HA for treatment purpose. So prescription is required. When there is spare capacity, we will be willing to share the proprietary Chinese medicine supply with the wider public. That's the care we received from the central government. However, prescription is needed because this is not proprietary medicines which requires prescription with a treatment effect. So we will collate the demand from across the departments and then request the supplies with the country. When major testing operation is conducted, for the parts of medical supply which we are not able to procure, we will seek help from the mainland, especially when these products are manufactured in the mainland. Then it would be more expedient to secure them from the mainland directly. So we thank the Guangdong provincial government for their huge support. Thank you.